Movies on television bring families together, influence viewing habits, and impact conversations. They're an essential part of our lives. Not only that, the synergy of movies and television has also proven to be lucrative for brands who want to reach India at large. In a series of chats with marketers and media leaders, we discuss Bollywood and brands, all things related to marketing, media, and especially movies. I'm your host, Susmita, Executive Editor at afaqs, and today my guest is Vikram Sakhuja, Group CEO, Madison Media and OOH. Welcome, Vikram.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. We know a lot about your career from 1988 to now. But I want to go a little, further back and understand what was your early life like, childhood, where did you grow up, and what was that experience, and how did those experiences shape, define what career choices you made and what you are today?
My God, that's profound, yeah. No, I had a pretty normal childhood, yeah. Maybe a little sheltered also. I was in Delhi. I grew up in, it was a nice public school. Fortunately, the school had sensibilities where it wasn't that elitist. So it was one of those, it was a modern school, and the principal was absolutely fantastic. So we got some good basic values, grounding of good values, and I think that really helped. But I think the formative years really, the home environment was the one which really shapes you as a character. So we are a nice tight knit family. My dad died very early, so really my mom brought us all up. So yeah, I went and did my engineering in IIT Delhi, and by third year it was one of those 5 year IITs. I was the first of the 10+2 batch and second last of the 5 year engineering one. So my third year was pretty clear. I didn't want to be an engineer. So anyway, but I loved being in IIT, but I wasn't very sure about the engineering. So I spent most of my time. I did reasonably well in studies, but I spent most of my time in what we used to call a seminar hall. I was very keen on theatre in college, a little bit in school, but mostly in college and postgrad. So most of my time was really there. But I had a blast those 5 years, but I was pretty clear at the end of it. I didn't want to do engineering, and I think the decisive one was in my fourth year. I was a textile engineer, so I went to a mill in Bangalore, Binny Mills. And when I went into the shop floor, I said, "Man, I just can't see myself here." And yeah, so basically one thing led to another. I was interested in all the psychologies, arts, and all those kind of courses, and somewhere consumer, I think probably came in from there that standpoint. And I think, yeah, I worked for 2 years in DCM as a management trainee. That time it was a fantastic training. It was in those days, probably after the Tata Administrative Service, it was the other sort of group. DCM was a pretty large group in those days. They had their own mini tasks. We called DCM an empty scheme. So that was very good. They got some brilliant professors, used to do on-the-job training. And I think that time I got cemented that I want to do marketing. And after 2 years, I did my MBA. And once I joined IMCAL, I was very clear. I was one of those marketing types. So, in CAL, you either have finance, you have systems. You have a bunch of core courses which everybody takes, and then electives. So, most of my electives were in the area of marketing I was pretty clear I wanted to do a marketing job at that point in time post MBA. So, you have IT, finance, basically marketing to some extent. Yeah, these are the three main kind of divisions or electives that people would go in for. So yeah, so I think pretty much I would say in IIT I became pretty clear that I wanted to get away from engineering and into something which involved the consumer. I was fascinated with psychology and consumer behavior and stuff like that. And then one thing led to another, and then I joined PNG straight after campus. Lovely. I think that's the best business school in the world. And the 8 years I spent there were absolutely blissful. I think Coke 5 years were also very good. I learned the science of marketing at PNG, but here it was more the
Maybe from that early part of your career, some significant campaigns that you executed, something that even today you think back to that and maybe draw learnings from there.
From the early days, I would say a couple of things. I picked up, I joined PNG at the time when PNG was just entering into India. So we were really at the threshold of launching all the new products. So to my mind, I think the aerial launch, which I was an integral part of, was something which I'll always hold close, dear, very, very close. It's over 30 years back, but I remember it like it was yesterday. So I think that was something very, very dear. I think the Whisper launch also was. Uh, these two, I think, and both the brands went on to do very well. So I think that was nice. I think I learned the entire new product launch process model, which I still use to date. And essentially, there's a certain structure with which you can actually launch a brand and put it into market, the PNG way, and which I still continue to use. And uh,
The
even
basics of a new product launch changed in these 30 years? Do the fundamentals remain the same, or has, because of consumers changing, behavior changing, have there been any changes?
fundamentally, they remain the same. I think a couple of changes that have happened is I've seen three major shifts, and it's not that one has given way to the other, they all coexist. The first 90s was all about the science of media planning. So it was reach, frequency, GRPs, whenever you advertise, how does it build awareness? So, the entire science part, and which is what really the Proctors and all that we used to really go entirely by that. And you advertise, that will grow, will build your awareness will build trial, and that's how you build your business. I think around the turn of the century, while it was always there, it's not that it wasn't there earlier, but there was a big move of the IMC, or the integrated marketing communication. So you have a central idea and brought alive by touch points. So suddenly in the first stage, it was you allot your money more to do with how you're building reach, and you do it in the most efficient manner. Whereas in an IMC, you just go to the various touch points which bring alive a certain idea differently. So the thinking is a little different. And I think post digital, the entire consumer journey based marketing, or the marketing funnel as they now call it, I think these were the additions that have happened. So I think in the last 35 years, these are the major phases that one has seen. They all coexist. Fundamentals remain the same. I think the building blocks are the same.
Got it. You mentioned theater when you spoke about your college. So, was any of that, did that trickle down into a love for Bollywood? Any new movies you watched recently? Anything you would want to recommend?
Yeah, I think the independent mile. I loved Bollywood right through. I mean, right through. I'm a total movie buff, both Hollywood and Bollywood. So yeah, which is my latest one, which I liked. I probably like 12th Fail a lot. I
Right.
just saw that reasonably recently. Uh, then I saw Animal, and I'm a little divided on that actually. It was some parts were compelling and very disturbing poetry, but some of the points were really some scenes were done well. But overall, I don't think the movie agreed that well with me. But yes, it was quite compelling, but 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 with qualifications. So, but 12th Fail was an absolute masterpiece. It was a mini masterpiece.
It's fantastic. So the two movies you mentioned, I mean, Animal and 12th Fail, I mean, two ends of the spectrum, kind of. And we are seeing that Bollywood movies are doing so well. I mean, 12th Fail could be, something that possibly people are discovering a lot once it has come into homes, not in the cinema theaters. But, movies like Brahmastra, Pathan, Gadar 2, Jawan, you name it. I think with seven of the most recent movies and Salar included, box office collections was about 2,800 crore, give or take. So, how can marketers leverage movies, especially when they make it on to television channels, to fuel growth for their brands?
Um, Look, at a fundamental level, when since your question is how should marketers leverage movies, when marketers are using media, they are using it for it could be a number of reasons. The most, the dominant reason for using any kind of media is as a distribution pipe. You've made an ad and you want to make sure it gets seen. So that is really where 75, 85%, I would say, of the entire AdX really goes on the branding part of the AdX, really goes in just making sure that I have an ad and it needs to get seen. At that point in time, it's really reach, frequency, cost per rating point, those kind of metrics that decide whether or not which kind of platforms I will be on. And it could be a cinema, it could be movies, it could be TV, it could be on TV, movies or GC or whatever it might be. But all these things pretty much dictate that. The other way in which people actually spend also money is they do associative marketing, where you try to rub off, people who use the word affinity. So associative marketing is when the environment of the media environment that you're in rubs off on your brand. So there's a lot of that happens. So if you coffee with Karan, you might have those kind of brands which want to sort of lift off that kind of environment. And it may be a whole very niche, but at the same time, it works that off. So that people sometimes use media for associative marketing. They also use it for, at times, just sponsorship. And sponsorship is actually quite different from associative marketing. Sponsorship quite literally means that this program has been brought to you by a certain thing. So if Tata is just paying a very, very handsome price for IPL, it's not just as a distribution pipe or even associative. It's much more than that. It's a end of the day, a sponsor is really seen to be a person who brings it. And through that, there's a certain kind of stature and a whole new values that get associated with the brand, higher order values. So if Nike's been a great one at that. When they endorse, when they pick up all the brand endorses, all the celebrities, the kind of sports they go after, it's a direct sort of almost like a endorsement. It's a very literal endorsement of their product, which actually goes on to build their brands. So I think sponsorship, and I'm using endorsement done the right way in that area. So I think that's another way. The point is, and like that, there are a few more now. Of course, media has also become a distribution pipe, a sales pipe. So we now have that performance marketing and all is all about sales. But as you can make out, there are a lot of ways for which you use media. Going back to your question about how to use movies, the reality is that I think most brands use movies really as a distribution pipe. Unlike some of them can try to use it for sponsorship and associative marketing. So yeah, I can understand that if in a movie channel might do say Shah Rukh Khan action festival, and now if Shah Rukh Khan is the brand ambassador for Thumbs Up, it makes sense for Thumbs Up to sort of associate with the Shah Rukh Khan festival, which is also all about his action movies. Now that is associative marketing, and there is some of that, but large part of that I think is using it as a distribution pipe. And that is where I still think cinema has a big role to play. I think it's interesting to understand how cinema operates. One is cinema is, it's a repeat business. So while people might, even in the hall, that was actually a learning which many, many years back, I used to think in a cinema hall, people just watch a movie once. I've never watched a movie second time in a cinema hall. But apparently I'm an exception. Large bulk of people will go to a cinema hall and see a good movie more than once. So it is a repeat business. And on movies, in TV, it becomes not only a repeat business, it also becomes a sort of snacking business. So people will come in and they may still come in, and Sholay is coming on. They will see, I want one particular scene of a Sholay, which they really are very fond of, a Gabbar scene or whatever it might be. And they'll be there for that moment, see it and go off. So it's an interesting way in which understanding how people watch and therefore being able to make sure the stickiness happens. As we found as a media planners that movies work very well, especially for males. And for most male brands, if you have to get reach, then you need to have a movie channel in the plan.
Got it.
As far as...
Sorry.
Yeah.
And I also want to get your thoughts on how important TV is to drive brand awareness. So you initially did speak about, how brands do invest a lot in brand awareness. So there's a Kantar cross-media study from 2012 to 2023 of more than, I think, about 125 case studies that says that 1/3 of impact building and brand awareness, comes from TV. Is that something you see with the experience you have? I mean, you handle so many brands, and how important is TV for brand awareness?
TV versus what?
TV versus other non-traditional media.
You think was it digital?
Yeah.
Non-traditional or
Digital.
Digital. So the comparisons are, are important because does TV give you impact? No question about it. Of course it does. It's in fact, like, to my mind, remains one of the strongest mediums today. But I think if you ask that at this point in time, I sometimes hear this, that if I put an ad on TV, it gets seen. If I put it in digital, it doesn't get seen. Now, I have a layperson kind of things, or some people saying anecdotally that this is the case. I think that's being a little simplistic. So I don't look. End of day, my building blocks are as follows. I actually think from a brand standpoint, an audiovisual, that is like a TV commercial, I think that's as a format that works very well because it's able to give you emotion. Anything which is like a film, it's a storytelling, there's emotion, and therefore the overall retentiveness is retention of the message, and is arguably much better than it is, say, with a print ad. A print ad, for example, would work very well for announcement, probably even better than what an ad might do on TV. But if you have to build basic brands and build a brand and its values, the emotional sort of connection coming through a TV ad works better. Now, I'm calling it TV ad, but let's call it an audiovisual ad. Effectively, to my mind, it can work equally well if you see it on a TV channel or if you can see it on, say, YouTube or a OTT, because the format is similar. Now, at this point in time, I think it's a little misleading to say that blanket TV works better than digital. I think TV definitely works very well, but even digital works well. But I think here you've got to have a few qualifiers. I may tell you what those qualifiers are. Look at the first instance between TV and digital. Let's understand that in TV, I'm buying a spot on a program. So, say, like you were saying, a movie channel, I'm buying a spot on a movie. And then I'm aggregating the people, the audiences who have come to watch the movie, who see my ad. In digital, it's totally different. In digital, I go and tell people, this is my audience. And then whatever, the DSP or the platform that I'm working with, they are the ones who will find out the audience wherever they might be, and they place the ad there. So you and I will see the ad in different times and on different sort of content or whatever it might be. So the big thing and problem in that is that even though you may do inclusions and exclusions, sometimes we find, say, on a YouTube, there'll be a large number of impressions for maybe an adult male or female brand targeted towards slightly older people on cartoon channels. Why? Because the device might be registered in a demographic which says older men, but it's being watched by their kids. Now, there are ways in which you can, so that's a wasted thing. Now, if you put your inventory there, obviously it won't work. Now, to blame, probably you should have been a bit more careful while planning and made sure that give an exclusion that you will not be on kids' channels and things like that. All these things are possible. The other is threshold levels. The crazy thing is, in TV, we all know that, like, if you put too little, it won't make any impact. If you talk about whatever, 500 GRPs, 600 GRPs, sometimes 800, 900 GRPs, then the campaign gets seen. For some odd reason, in digital, we don't use the GRP language, we use impressions. Now we say we're burning 10 million impressions. No, simple, just convert that into GRPs. And quite often you'll find that actually your GRP levels are quite low. So if your GRP levels are low, you're below thresholds, you can't expect that ad to be seen on digital. And the other third part is, of course, the biggest bane, in fact, bane for marketers and broadcasters alike is fragmentation has been for a long time. Because on digital, fragmentation is like even more. Now, YouTube, Google has come out with some kind of a technology which they call targeted frequency, where they're able to make sure that they can manage the long tail to some extent. So that is helping. But if you were not using that, now, for these reasons, you are sort of saying YouTube or digital or whatever doesn't work, but it's maybe you have not been using it correctly. But fact remains, if I'm watching it, and if it's a non-skippable ad there's no reason why the ad on YouTube shouldn't work as well as a TV ad. So where I'm coming from is that I think both are very, very powerful. TV is definitely very powerful. So is digital. The one more angle I'd like to bring in, and that is where I think will make a difference, is attention. Attention is something not enough people are talking about today. But that is where I feel that, and in fact, we are right now collaborating with somebody in Australia to do an attention study. It's quite likely that the attention towards an ad. So there's passive attention, there is active attention, and there's non-attention. So right now you are like looking at me and there's active attention. But I've been part of so many video calls, for example, where people are looking that way, this way, all the rest of it. They're not even paying any attention to you. And others who are just like there but not there. So that's the passive guys. So you pick up all of these and you'll suddenly find that TV, actually you'll find top of the heap will be cinema. So cinema will be maybe giving you a factor of, say, on 100, it'll probably be a 70 or 80. TV probably be about a 60 or so. Maybe a whole lot of digital platforms, especially the social media platforms for pure attention, because of that entire reel kind of base on the feed kind of thing, kind of sort of behavior. You'll probably be having maybe 2 or 20% would be the attention there. So if you factor that in, then yes, probably the impact of cinema would be most, then TV, and then maybe a YouTube and all may be slightly lower than that of a TV.
So given the kind of constraint you spoke about, one is about how do you measure the viewership, the reach on a digital platform, given all of those constraints that you spoke about digital, and if those were seen through a different perspective, maybe one would think that digital advertising is as effective as TV or reaches as many people. But given that we are in a different world right now, what is the kind of advice that you would give to a marketer on how to split? So say a large FMCG brand needs to split its media spend on TV and digital for a big launch. What sort of split would you advise to them as of today?
Look, it depends entirely on the category, and more the category, and then after that, whatever the brand imperative is. So purely from a branding standpoint, what we are really seeing is on overall aggregate, it'll be probably 70-30.
Okay.
If I look at the Pitch Madison report, we projected TV at about 33,000 crores. Overall digital is a little over 40,000 crores, but large part of that is performance. So I made an estimate of the branding, which is also video branding, to some extent display, but if you take the main video piece, it'll probably be around maybe 15,000 crores. So your TV therefore video becomes 33 plus 15, says around 50,000. So you're saying from that standpoint, about 30% is what digital is and 70% is what TV is. That is what the market is at today. And I think pretty much if I go category by category, there are some which are indexed more towards digital, and some where, like FMCG, probably maybe 85-15 or 80-20 or something like that for TV. But overall, I would say 70-30 is the overall thing. I think the need of the hour right now, not a moment too soon for that, is cross-media studies at industry level. But that, of course, is taking its time. I think pressure should be put to make sure that gets accelerated.
Okay. And one last question for you is, any last words on the power of Bollywood for television and brands?
Look, somewhere, this is something I've wrestled with a bit. I told you, look, I think it's clear that amongst the passions and religions in India, of course, cricket maybe tops it, but movies and Bollywood is probably there or close behind. But for whatever reason, the marketers of, or rather the guys who built these platforms as marketing platforms, they've been, what has the cricket has done a fantastic job to build the entire sponsorship and the entire associative marketing capability of a particular platform, which is why IPL gets the kind of title sponsor kind of prices it does, or for that matter, the broadcast sponsor and the premiums and all of those things. I think what movies need to understand is should you leverage movies, make it from a marketing standpoint, from a brand standpoint, how can I actually get associative rub-offs or stature? Just because today the reality is that if tomorrow today does a world television premiere of the last blockbuster and is brought to you by a particular brand, it's a one-off. I don't think it's as against, it doesn't give you the same rub-off as a sponsor as the same thing which you might do on, like, take the recent series. There was the last, I think there was a IDFC first, right? So where when India was bringing, if I'm not mistaken, that's IDFC first. Yeah. Now the fact that I'm being able to recall and saying there's an IDFC first cricket series, then now straight away I'm calling it that. For the longest time, we used to call it the Prudential World Cup. We used to call it Barclays English Premier League. Not now, but you've grown with those associations of calling it the Barclays English Premier League. Now, this basically confers on it a certain kind of stature to the brand. And English Premier League is a huge passion point, of course, in not only in UK, but amongst even the creamy layer in India. So I think that part can be tapped. How, I don't know. But movie marketing by the broadcasters, they haven't tapped on this quite as yet. So my leaving advice to them is try to get the same sponsorship value out of movies like the cricket guys have done.
I hope that happens, and the next time we have this conversation, things are very different.
Well, amen to that.
Thank you so much, Vikram, for your time today.
My pleasure, Susmita.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.